TV, are you ready? Okay, we're ready. Welcome, everyone. This is Lisa Edinburgh, Chair of the Westborough School Committee. Today is Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. This meeting of the Westborough School Committee is called to order. Please stand if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to notify everyone in the room with us tonight that this meeting is being recorded by Westborough TV. School committee meetings are available for remote viewing or listening on Westborough TV's government channels, Verizon 28 and Charter 192, and online on the Westborough TV YouTube channel. Thank you to Westborough TV for covering the broadcast this evening. We have with us tonight Superintendent Amber Bach, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Danielle Mayer, Director of Finance and Administration David Gordon. We are without us tonight is Vice Chair of the Westborough School Committee, Steve Jarrett. Unfortunately, he's unable to make it. And then we have school committee members, Stephen Batchelor, Kristen Vincent, and Raghu Nandan is unable to attend our meeting this evening as well. We have Student Representative Andrew Chen, Recording Secretary Jen Benton, and we have staff from Westborough TV here. So we'll begin, I'll just be reading off the agenda. Our agenda for this meeting is as follows. We'll begin with an approval of amended minutes from April 27th, 2022 regular session, then hear from Amber Bach with the superintendent's report, followed by the assistant superintendent's report, then the director of finance and administration's report. Then we'll hit you up with the school committee member reports, followed by the building. Actually, we may not have the building project update tonight, even though that's out on our schedule. We'll then hear from some citizens during citizens' requests, followed by special guests, Jacob Martin and Scott Valentino from Chartwells for an update on food services. Then we'll have an update about technology from the Westborough Public Schools Director of Technology, John Green, followed by the annual stipend memo for our review. Soon after, we'll take a sneak peek at the school committee meeting calendar for 2022-23, also for our review. Then we'll take action to receive or not receive a foundation reserve appropriation. From there, we'll review the Assabet Valley Collaborative updates, including a revision to the capital reserve plan and the tuition, service, and transportation rates for FY23. This serves as the third and fourth quarterly reviews. Then finally, before adjournment, we'll get an update on the Armstrong roof with no need for an executive session this evening. So let's begin with an approval of the amended April 27th regular session minutes. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 27th.
The amended
Minutes from April 27th.
Do we have a second?
I second.
And is there any discussion? A small amendment under school choice and Ms. Edinburgh's comments. Last sentence should read, in regards to being able to afford to live in this town, the Affordable Housing Trust is just beginning, enabling more opportunity. Any other discussion? All in favor? That's a 3-0 vote with 3 being present. Then we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Amber?
Thank you. Good to see everybody tonight. I actually don't have a lot of detailed report to give tonight other than general celebration that it's a time of year when we have a lot going on, and we have, I think, 4 students, I don't have all their names, that were participating in the Gibbons Science Fair, and actually several of them won awards. There was 1 grand prize, and a 3rd place, and all of them will be going on to the Mass Fair kind of next level of competition. And it's fascinating. I'll read the one was on the acceleration of an object on an inclined plane. It was a top award winner with a cash award, and they will enter into the next level. One was, does damage to a pill encapsulating layer affect the amount of time medication dispensing through the body? Just very high quality, good science, and well presented. So we have 4 middle school students moving forward to the next level of project. Our robotics team, again, had a great year as well. Our national and state rankings continue to really demonstrate that we have pretty amazing kids and faculty who care about academics, enjoy the both kind of some of the challenge benchmarks related to academics, which I think is a part we don't always bring here and remember to share. So I just find it such an enjoyable and I guess motivating time of year to see how students' learning kind of gets demonstrated in so many amazing ways. So really pleased to see our Westborough students benchmarking so well. And I think for me, that's my report for tonight. Like I said, not too many things that I need to put on the table for you.
Okay. Daniel, do you have something for this evening?
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. And Dave, anything for this evening?
Nothing to report right now. We'll follow up on the Armstrong roof project.
Okay. Okay. So we'll move on to school committee member reports. Andrew?
Okay, I have a few things to report. Phil's third graders are looking forward to their third grade strings concert next Wednesday. And Hastings are preparing for their first Spring Flower Festival next week on Thursday, May 19th, which is a new event created by their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for the Hastings community. Families and students are welcome to participate to just celebrate their uniqueness and diversity. There will be a picnic, art projects, listening to music, and a drum circle, I believe. At the high school, a lot going on. Junior prom will be next week, Friday, May 7th, followed by senior prom the following Friday, May 27th, which is also the last day for seniors. Yeah. Lit Mag held their annual Ned's Coffee House, which was last Friday, which is basically like a talent show, but there's no winner. It's really fun. And this week at the high school is Unity Week, where basically each day they're tackling like a specific topic. From like Monday was personal identity, Tuesday and Wednesday was like culture day, and people brought in like different foods from their different cultures, and it was nice. I was out for those days for AP exams, but I heard there was some really nice food. And it will culminate on Friday, which we will, the last period on this Friday, there will be a social emotional learning period where students can do things related to like mental health awareness, things like that. And also I have a message from Mr. Mendez about an Eagle Scout project that was going on at Armstrong. Greetings, Westborough School Committee. I'm pleased to share the news of an exciting composting project that started at Armstrong School on Monday, April 25th. Sean Levine, which he's a really nice guy, by the way, a former Armstrong student and soon to be Eagle Scout, completed his Eagle Scout project to bring a composting pilot program to Armstrong School. Sean took the initiative to consult with the Black Earth Composting Company and helped to plan out many of the details that has made composting a reality for Armstrong students. Sean was instrumental in helping students to understand the core concepts of composting through his presentations during 2 school-wide assemblies. Our students now place uneaten food in a green composting bin organized in the cafeteria. To complete his Eagle Scout project, Sean also built a stable on the grounds at Armstrong, where these compost bins are kept, and Black Earth Composting comes to collect the food that we collect in the cafeteria on a weekly basis. Sean Levine is commended for his leadership, work ethic, and collaborative nature. Sincerely, Mr. Mendez. So, yeah, that's all I have to report for today.
That's great. Thank you very much.
That's the pilot that we're developing so that we can look at getting data from Armstrong to see about how to then expand the composting program. It's one of our strategic plan goals, and Sustainable Westborough, all related to diminishing our impact on the Harvey trash and eliminating waste. So that's very exciting. And he did a great job on the project. So it's neat because they're pulling real data in real time by the end of the year to give us a snapshot so that we can use it to plan forward. So again, very exciting.
That is exciting. Yep. Okay, Steve, do you have something?
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Kristen?
Yep, I just had one thing to share. I attended the energy fair at Mill Pond School on Saturday, April 30th, and it was a really, really great event. lots of community members and even folks from outside our community there to share about new technologies, green technologies. Black Earth Compost was there, like just lots of community groups. There were lots of students there sharing different projects they had worked on that were related to the environment or to sustainability and moving forward. And there's a really nice summary video about the Energy Fair on Westborough TV, if anyone's interested.
No. Well, thank you very much. So I'd like to report Westborough High School senior Arushi Pant was the winner of a National Merit Scholarship Award. Arushi was named as one of the 3 NMSC finalists from Westborough in 2021. She plans to study neuroscience in the fall. And just to give you a sense, many criteria are reviewed for these awards, including academic record, difficulty level of subjects studied and grades earned, scores from preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test, contributions in leadership in school and community activities, an essay written by the finalist, and a recommendation. So she did a lot to receive this amazing award. Congratulations to Arushi. And then there are a lot of things to report these days: end-of-year activities, sports outcomes that make us smile, the Les Miserables performance of an especially talented group that made me forget I was watching high school students. They were exceptional and highlight hard work and a high level of competency of our fine arts staff and students. Yet, what struck me most of the last 2 weeks was the first annual event of Unity Week at Westborough High School that Andrew described in detail, with acts of cowardice and hatred that cause us to pause and reflect on how to change and foster an inclusive and respectful environment and community, and beyond this, promote mutual respect, tolerance, and acceptance for the diversity that is Westborough, taking stock, highlighting our differences while coming together to explore our mental health and well-being is an extraordinary step in the right direction. I applaud the students, school faculty, and administration for this thoughtful programming that leads to a compassionate, inclusive community within our schools. And thank you, Brian Callahan, for a thorough email describing the week with an eloquent explanation, allowing parents to recognize that the road toward unity is paved with thoughtful deliberation and hard work toward meaningful change. That's all I have for this evening. So we're skipping over our building project update, but we are going to have a Armstrong roof update later in the meeting. So we have come to now citizens' requests. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to make a statement to the school committee? Come right forward. As a reminder, we have a policy regarding citizens' requests. Some important pieces of this policy include that you must be a current resident of Westborough. Speakers are allowed to address the school committee about issues within the school committee's purview, Westborough School District policy or budget. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak to the school committee. Written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the presiding chair before or after the meeting. You are welcome to hand me additional comments in writing now or send them via email, and I will share them with the other school committee members. Public comment by residents at this meeting is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion to school committee members on issues within the school committee's authority. Our role is to listen carefully to what you have to share with us tonight. Clapping, cheering, calling out, or any other noise following a speaker is not allowed. A reminder that if not following the policy, this may cut into your time. Additionally, I want to remind members of the school committee that when making a point of order, please address your concern to the chair initially rather than to the speaker. Please state your name and address and speak into the microphone.
Mike Matthew, 20 Andrews Road, Westborough.
That's great.
I think I qualify as a resident.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, basically, for all of you. As one of Westborough's top realtors, I get asked all the time by parents that are looking to move their families to a nice community with an excellent school system. I'm asked to tell these parents all about the Westborough schools from my perspective as a business owner in town. As the father of 2 daughters who both went through the Westborough school system, and as a realtor myself who has been promoting our highly ranked school system for many years, I always had a lot of great things to say to these parents. From my research and expertise, Westborough schools have consistently been in the top tier statewide in just about every category. That's why my question is a difficult one for me to ask. Since our town meeting on March 19th, when 2 young children made some shocking statements, I've had parents that are considering to move to Westborough ask me, and I quote, "What is being taught in our schools to children in Westborough for these 2 children to be making such damaging statements at a town meeting?" So in order to be truthful to these parents, how do you suggest I respond?
So since citizens' request is not a back and forth between the school committee and yourselves, I, sort of.
Yeah, I definitely.
But if you'd like to respond, it's absolutely.
No. I think true to your layout of your format, I won't respond now, but certainly would love an opportunity, and Daniel and I would welcome an opportunity to have you in and sit and talk about that, so you feel well armed with authentic and accurate and clear information, so you can continue to represent us so highly as you just stated, which I continue to feel is still very true about who we are, and I'd love the opportunity to sit and talk with you. So Daniel and I will send you a follow-up, and let's sit down and do that.
Yeah, please.
That'd be
I think
great.
you have my information.
I do. I know where to find you, so that would be great. I would welcome that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate when citizens come and join us. That is very nice, and get opinions and questions. Those are really good. Thank you for meeting with them as well. So we're going to move on. Oh, is there anyone else?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at citizens' request? Okay, that was a good question. Yep.
Small crowds. We always
Yes.
look like out thinking, come forward, or whatever.
None. We'll move on to the Chartwell's food service update. And so we have 2 people with us tonight. Do you want to introduce?
Thank you. Annually, we always have Chartwells in as an opportunity to provide a summary on the year, and they'll introduce themselves in just a minute and have an opportunity to provide highlights on the year and answer questions. And we really feel like we have a long-standing relationship with Chartwells, and we welcome them. And I will turn it actually over to you guys. You can introduce yourselves so that people can hear, and welcome.
Hi, I'm Scott Valentino. It's nice to see everybody again. It's been a couple of years with COVID, but it's so nice to be back, and I love the room. It's much nicer. This is Jacob Martin. He's the director at Westborough. He's been with us since, with Chartwells for many years, but with us in the district here since last summer. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself to start, if it's okay.
Hi, yes. So this is my first full year in Westborough, but I have a little over 11 years experience in private schools and public schools, the like, through Compass Group and Chartwells. And I've always really enjoyed working in schools. I have young children, and it's great to see going through all the different elementary schools, kids my daughter's age going through the lunch line, getting excited for lunch, and seeing, what's on the menu the next day, and conversating with the ladies in the kitchen, really brings me some joy. Working with different levels of staff, safety is always really important in kitchens, and I try to preach that to all my staff, and give them whatever they need to succeed in their jobs. As well as I'm well versed in K through 12 standards, going through administrative reviews, my past district, and doing very well in those. So that's kind of my story.
Good. Well, we wanted to share a couple of high-level numbers with everyone. It's kind of powerful stuff. Prior to COVID in 2018, 2019, for the district, for the school year, we did about 319,000 meals, which is pretty good. And reimbursements from the state were a little over $1 million back to there, with a 43.1% product cost. That includes food and paper as well. Snapshotted forward, since everyone is now free for the government, this year, with pretty much doubled in almost everything, which is pretty wild. 569,000 meals were projected to do for the district, and a little over 2.2 million in reimbursements, and our cost had gone down as well, just for the speed of the line and getting some different products. We've had some supply chain issues. You've seen the stores everywhere. Jacob and his team have done a great job following up and doing some substitutions, and we do appreciate the community everywhere, their leniency and just understanding that it's a tough time to get things, and with the inflation costs and CPI and things like that, it seems to be getting a little bit better, knock on wood. One of the questions was, do we see free and reduced being continued into next year? Changes daily. We hear things that the state has a budget in place to cover that. We've heard rumors of maybe September, maybe October, through the year. We just don't know yet. If I was a betting man, I would probably say yeah, but don't quote me on that. So we'll see. But in retrospect, it's been a pretty crazy year. This team has done really well, I think, productivity-wise, and they've really stepped up and done well. Pretty powerful numbers. Now, next year, we've got a couple of things in place. Some of the things that we did prior to COVID, some of the things that we've done until then, and some new things. Just quickly go over it. Student choice. We did that the first year here. It was extremely well taken. Couldn't do it with the restrictions for COVID, but hopefully we'll be back doing that in the fall. And basically what that is the high school and middle school level. There's two different concepts. We have about 14 to 16 concepts of different barbecue, different ethnicities. There's a vegetarian station, there's a vegan station. We do 2 samplings during school lunch. Come up, the students will take whichever one they like, and they vote on their phones, and it pops up real time where the poll is. And then that becomes the following month's weekly station. So the students actually pick what they want. So we're listening to what they say, and we're getting some feedback. And then once that barbecue station becomes say it's a barbecue station, becomes that station, there's 16, 15 different entrees throughout the week that we can rotate in. And then we do it again the following month. So we have about 6 turnovers a year, which is pretty well received. There's a mood boost program for elementary schools. Same thing. It's there's different characters that represent how they're feeling that day. I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling proud, things like that. Stickers in the calf kind of reinsures their, they're just having a good day and kind of explaining some of the things, and also encouraging some tasting Tuesdays, which is down the list, where we'll put out samples of maybe it's a cauliflower, a buffalo cauliflower, which is, believe it or not, is ridiculously huge in elementary schools, but because it's buffalo, right? You can buffalo anything in our world and it becomes good. But that introduced them to different vegetables that they normally wouldn't see. Jicama slaw, things like that, where they would say, oh, I've never had that before. And we kind of rotate that in. And you get a little sticker that says, I tried it, and they get really proud, and they go home and they do some things like that. Continuing with the child nutrition programs is going to be a big focus as well. The big thing is student surveys. We're going to get back to whether it be an online in the higher eds with parents, and also for elementary school, a very simple survey. Could be as simple as an iPad, depending on COVID restrictions out the door. Did you like what you saw today? Yes or no, very simple. Or in detail of sending out a formal survey, whether it be via the website or things like that. And there's some different options that Jacob can present first thing in the fall to kind of see what's best for the district. You can work with David and Amber and see what fits best. But that'll be communicated pretty thoroughly. It's a big focus into next year. Serving standards and team members and COVID-19 preparation and preparedness. Again, every day is, fortunately, we've seen a little bit of an uptick, as you probably heard, but we'll see how the summer goes. And then big in diversity inclusion training. We started this year. He does monthly trainings. Shannon talks about just diversity and inclusion, how everyone's equal, similar to what Andrew had said earlier, how it's, the food thing was fantastic. I wish we could have got involved in that, because we would have loved to seen it, because we've had a ton of different recipes to do as well. And then finally, this just came up, but the composting I just heard is, I know Jacob had told me about this with the Eagle Scout. I'm a former Eagle Scout too, so it's near and dear to my heart, but that was 1987, but we're not gonna go there. But no, it's good that we can do that. We have many programs, and we can steal from a lot of the districts too. I've got some districts, Manchester by the Sea, Swampscott, that does a really robust composting program. I guess the policies and procedures are kind of in play already. We can certainly steal that or use best practices. So when we get to that point, I'd love to be involved, if possible, in the sit-down committees and sit down, just come in and just share what we've got, anywhere from not just only putting the right food in the right container, but where does that container go after that? Does it go to a pig farmer? Does it go to a repostable compost place? Does it not go, does it go recycle? Does it not go recycle? Does it go to the landfill? There's a big difference between just putting it into a recycle barrel. We actually track it where it goes. They've put charts on the wall to say where it is now. It's kind of neat. It's all done on the internet. It's pretty wild stuff. And we partner with local pig farmers for the composting as well. So we could certainly do that. Even it starts in elementary school where they've got 4 or 5 different buckets of return where they come up and say, okay, put your liquid there, put your food there, put your, your silverware there, and put this there. And they get that. And by week 2, they're doing their own thing. It's kind of neat. So is there any questions, anything we can answer for anyone? I know we kind of flew through a lot of stuff.
No questions at this time? So it's sort of interesting, that question about whether it would be free for next year.
Yes.
And I'm on many listservs as a school committee member, and today there was an actual article that came through the Commonwealth magazine, and it specifically addressed the food,
Yes.
free or not. And it sounds as if it's up to the Senate right now.
Correct.
It's been put
Correct.
into the budget as
110
a
million, yeah.
potential
Yeah.
budgetary item, and it's really up to the Senate to decide whether they're going to pay for it. But what the article really was an argument for the rate of return on feeding students for free, that the cost of not feeding students for free has a much bigger bill associated with it, and therefore that's the argument made, hopefully to the Senate, is
Sure.
this is the thing to do. Just because what we discovered through COVID also, and knew beforehand, but it became exasperated, is food insecurity is increasing significantly
Yeah, it
over
assures
time.
every student's
It is
eating.
pretty big.
Yeah.
It's big.
And that Massachusetts has a higher cost of living, and because of that, the federal guidelines for free and reduced lunch has less percentage of Massachusetts residents able to receive free and reduced lunch, which is astounding, but it is a problem, because if you use the same exact standards across every state,
Right.
you end up with our situation where there are people who are just receiving their only lunch of the day and their own meal, often their own meal of the day. So it's very interesting, and I hope it happens. And I also wanted to just commend you, Jacob, on your first year. You know, the small issues that happen with food services, you have handled it like a pro, and with immediacy and great responsiveness. I just think, I wanted to just put a shout out, kudos to you, that it's tough coming into a new district, never mind, technically, it's still a COVID year. I mean, it's still a COVID recovery
Yeah, we're not
year.
exactly out of it. It's even I talked to my staff. This year has been tougher than last year, where kids were in school half the time. We were doing half the volume. We were almost looking for things the staff to do, and now it's like, all right, you're doing double the meals. It's tough to find product, and yeah, it's been a very busy year. But I've really enjoyed it here so far.
Well, thank you, because when we started breakfast at the rest of the schools, we started at a school, and then I think 2 years ago, it was to come in, and as soon as there was this COVID hybrid piece, it seemed easier, but not easier, because it was just so complicated. And now just that you're serving so many more breakfasts and lunches, it really is extraordinary what you've been able to do. So thank you.
I just wanted to, just give a kind of a big shout out to Jacob in his first year, along with myself. He's really navigated, I think, the whole true dynamic of not only getting a pulse on the students and their likes and dislikes, but the staff as well. I've heard on many occasions from several different staff at different schools about his willingness to kind of get his hands dirty, to serve meals. He's on the front line. He supported us during town meeting. He was there serving the wraps, and so I just really wanted to give him a strong commendation and just really a big shout out to say, you really have, done a great job this year, embracing the community and, I guess getting his hands wet and getting his feet dirty. And, I just felt like that deserves a lot, because not all food service directors would do that. So I think it's very commendable.
Thank you, David.
I had a question, just those numbers that you shared about the numbers of meals that we've served this year, since, it's like completely free, and is that a trend across the state with the other schools? that you're
Every
working-
school district is
Every
doing
school
it. Yep.
district, yeah. And the costs, interestingly enough, the costs come down.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have, because we're buying in such bulk now.
Right.
And we're going to vendors where, Chartwell's is part of Compass, so we're going to like a Tyson plant saying, we're going to employ you guys 24/7, so here's where it is. And that's a direct pass-through to the districts per law. There's no any vendor allotments, comes right back to the district.
Right,
That's audited
right.
by the state, so.
So it just makes perfect sense. You're going to buy more and more kids need it, and, it just,
Yeah.
it makes sense to me.
It's,
Yeah, and the breakfast program too, I feel is doing well. You can let me know, but
great
I feel like
feedback.
lots of people take advantage of that
Yeah,
as
and
well.
when we get back to, we hope again, like a real stable trajectory of next year, we can get a good, clean data grab on the stability of what lunches are flowing, where the breakfast programs are, and just kind of look at the overall data, take the survey data so we can kind of drill down. And I still feel like the comparative years are so off that it's hard to get a snapshot of where we are. So I'm looking forward to having Jacob and Scott. I'm so glad to see you back, and welcome back, to have us really dive in next year and hit the ground running. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you
being
so
with us
much.
tonight, and
You're welcome.
appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So next on our agenda, we're zipping along, starting a little early, but I see our speaker is here for the technology update. The Director of Westborough Public Schools Director of Technology, John Green, is here to give us a technology update.
So annually, it's an opportunity for John to just give you, this year we're kind of doing kind of a big snapshot overview and just the direction of the department, and an opportunity to kind of hear a synopsis. And then some years we back into kind of more in-depth data. This is a nice overview and a chance to touch base with John. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to see you all this evening. Appreciate your time. So I'm going to do a quick update. I haven't been here for a couple of years. Lots has happened since then, last time I was here, so I'll do my best to give you an overview. It includes not just this year, but a couple of years past, and it's not always clear what things would happen this year, what things happened in last year or so. If you have questions about that, just jump in and ask me, and I'll clarify. But I just wanted to keep it kind of brief and grouped together so we get through this. And
It's all a blur for me. You could say yesterday or 2 weeks ago or a year ago. I have no idea.
Yeah, me too. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. So we're going to touch on who we are as a team, our budgeting philosophy, updates for infrastructure, teaching and learning, operations, and then a couple of slides on the COVID response. So there are 17 of us on the team. A couple of roles have changed recently. So in the last couple of weeks, Bernadette Noel has transitioned from the data specialist role to the HR coordinator role. In her place, Venus Ramanathan has taken over and just started this week. And so we're looking forward to having her on board and working with us and doing that important work. In November of 2020, Tina Mayone and Tyrone noticed we expanded their roles from a school year plus role as a building technology support paraeducator to a computer support technician. And that was reflecting the greater need for year-round people and full-time employees, and also the level to which they have risen in their craft and in their role. And so having them around, having more of them more often is great. And then we have our building technology specialist paraeducators. Bhavya Mani started this fall, and then recently has taken on a role doing long-term subbing at high school in biology, which is her initial study area. Kristen Doyle, a SPED paraeducator, has been chosen to be our long-term sub for Bhavi in that role through the end of the school year here, and then depending on where things go, then that session will get posted or not, and we'll move forward there. Ryan McNeedy and Marianne Mort both started in the fall of 2020 due to retirements. So we had, Carrie Addington and Sue Pressman, who had been here for a while. Both they retired, and so we filled those roles there. So overall, a pretty stable team. Oh, and also retirements. Julie Leach retired at the end of 2020. See the little trend there. And Megan Gerstensang, who was a math teacher at Givens, has stepped into that role and has been doing a great job as well. And we have new faces for instructional tech at Mill Pond, Paula Johnson and Caitlin Gardner. They're filling the tech integration and library teacher roles simultaneously. So there wasn't that increase in headcount on that one there. And so budgeting, we really appreciate the community's generosity and commitment to technology within our schools, and we take that responsibility very seriously. We're always looking for ways to improve the service, improve what we're doing and how we're delivering it to our folks without compromising value and function, but looking for ways to keep the costs mitigated when and where we can. And we also prioritize keeping up with our replacing our end-of-life equipment so that we don't end up in a hole later on where all of a sudden we need a whole bunch of money to replace a whole bunch of old stuff that we've let get old. So we try to keep those things moving. We replace our teacher devices and our student devices and our more durable, 5 and 10 year lifetime equipment in those lifetimes as they become end of life, before they become end of life, so that we can keep those up to date, refreshed, and not incur budget hits on those. For example, in FY19 or after FY19, we phased out our leasing of our student iPads and Chromebooks. And so this gives us a more flexible window within which to purchase those devices, and based on price and availability. That positioned us really well for this purchasing cycle and previous purchasing cycles where we had longer lead times for Chromebooks and iPads and things like that. We were able to buy in advance of that and get our stuff in on time, which was great. We switched to self-funding iPad repairs for 4 through 6, K through 6, when we analyzed the repair data and found, it'll be cheaper to do that ourselves rather than doing it, sending it out, or rather than doing like an insurance program for that. The federal and state COVID grants were essential funding sources to keep us running during those months. We continue to assess which of those things that we took on we're going to keep, which ones we're going to phase out, which ones we're just going to reduce the level of. So we're keeping an eye on that so that as those grant funds go away, we're not stuck with a huge increase in the tech budget for those. We have a new copier lease that's in progress, and that increases our options and comes in a little bit less expensive, which is great considering the overall trend of prices lately. And FY23, so in the upcoming year's budget, we had requested an increase in that, and that's to restore temporary reductions that happened during the COVID, and also to help accelerate the replacement of aging projectors. So with the Fales Building Project, we've got new state-of-the-art classroom AV systems there, and we're looking to move our aging projectors over to that system as budgeting allows. So we have a baseline of that built into the budget, and then anything above and beyond that, we can accelerate those plans. So infrastructure updates, some accomplishments. So you see a lot of EOL on this slide. So these are things that we replaced as they were reaching end of life. So we had some network switches. We had virtual infrastructure, server and storage, firewall hardware, telephone servers, a few wireless access points. And then we also, at our Fales project, which let us raise the bar on basic classroom technology there. So we have the smart board. We also have the voice lift TopCAD in every classroom, which is a great addition for overall accessibility and the ability for students to follow what's going on and hear the teacher and each other, which we had been working around during pandemic and masks by having these little portable amplifiers that teachers could wear that would help with the mask, which was good, better than nothing, but not as nice as these here. In advance of Verizon phasing out copper phone lines in town, we migrated our copper phone lines to network internet-based SIP, more features, less money. Same with fax. We brought our PowerSchool server in-house to be able to get more control over how we integrate that with other systems, and also to decrease our costs for managing that. Goals coming up, we do have some end-of-life classroom phones and PA equipment. High school is underway with a completion by July, assuming all the parts come in at the right time. And other schools they'll be looking at after that will be Armstrong and Mill Pond, and I believe Hastings as well. We're looking at Mill Pond security cameras. We'll do an assessment this coming year for FY24 budgeting purposes. That's really our last big expensive school for security cameras. Armstrong doesn't have any, but the network infrastructure is already there because we had that installed when we were doing network installations a couple of years ago for Wi-Fi. And Hastings could use some more cameras. They didn't get a full build out during the renovation. But again, when we did the Wi-Fi installations and upgrades at Hastings, we pulled wiring for cameras at the same time to piggyback those projects together. So we don't have to go back and do it twice. We have a small number of access points reaching end of life. We'll replace those. And we're looking to expand our digital signage and find software with more features and capabilities. So we're sort of building on what we started off at Fails with the digital signage there and then expand that for more capabilities. Teaching and learning, working and learning from home. We did some of that. And then coming back with all the different modifications and accommodations for physical distancing, masking, and whatnot. So now, as a result of that, all of our students K through 9 have a dedicated district-provided iPad or Chromebook. So before it was 4 through 9, now it's K through 9. And of course, the 10 through 12 students have their bring your own. We developed processes and methods to ensure all families have home Wi-Fi. We brought new people to the Mill Pond Library and Technology roles and combined the special schedule to add flexibility for them. And we developed and led training opportunities for the new technology at Fail so that when the teachers were able to go from the old building to the new building in November, they were able to be right up and running and plug and go without a lot of hassle that way. Teaching and learning, so some of the goals, supporting library teachers with the K-3 digital literacy benchmarks development and piloting. So we've seen a lot of innovation and I guess, I think of the innovation cycle as initially divergent, where everyone goes off and tries different things and kind of see what works and how they work, and then we try to converge back into some best practices. And so now we're kind of in the convergent stage where we're trying to bring folks all everybody on the same page, doing roughly the same things at the same time. So you have some consistency of student experience across the K-3 tech landscape. So that's ongoing. Integrating family technology assessment and orientation. So as we onboard families during new student registration, being able to get a sense of their technology needs and capabilities to make sure that they have what they need to be able to access our communications and access student learning at home and other, integrate completely with sort of the digital town, digital school. And that third one, that's related to the green energy and the, I'm forgetting the acronym right now, but it'll come to me in a moment, for visualizing resource usage within schools. So, we have the solar panels on Fails. There's a whole dashboard that shows the production consumption. And we're hoping to expand that beyond just electricity and beyond just Fails. So we'll be able to see water and other resources that are happening and being consumed in the schools, and the kind of live dashboard kind of thing. So this is a multi-year project, but it's kind of exciting and cool to think of it as kind of a real-time view of what's happening, so that students can see their impact on their community and how their efforts to conserve resources within the community add up and contribute to the larger picture. First robotics team at Gibbons Middle School, expand on our success there. Makerspace is K through 6, so if Fails has the new Makerspace, Mill Pond's had a Makerspace for a couple of years, and we're working to keep that rolling and move that forward, and also bring those same capabilities to Hastings and Armstrong as well. And then just support digital literacy curriculum development in grades K6, so following on to the K3 digital literacy benchmarks, and then going vertical into 4 through 6 and getting a good sense of scope and sequence, and make sure that we don't have gaps in what students are experiencing, and they're getting their digital literacy lessons and growth. Okay, operations. This is kind of our back office stuff. So for our accomplishments, we've been partnering with HR, so on the design, procurement, implementation of HR processes to streamline and automate workflows, similar in the business office, more PowerSchool customizations for the admin and parent portals, migrating assorted web services to vendors' cloud offering when doing so reduces our total cost of ownership or cost of use. Goals, developing a roadmap for redesigning our website, more iterations of partnering with HR and business offices, again, to keep working on those workflows, to streamline those, digitize those where we can, and get some efficiencies there. And also assess our math notification system, online payment systems, and other systems for opportunities to improve features and integration and value and cost. All right, so quick brief on response to COVID. So it was a pretty quick pivot for everybody suddenly teaching from home, learning from home, working from home. And it took an extraordinary level of effort on the tech department, but on everybody in the district. I mean, everybody was just doing everything. It was crazy. It was, in a good way. I mean, we did really well with it, but it was just, I've never seen anything like that before, obviously, because none of us have, thankfully. But our strong technology base and our early purchasing had us really well positioned. So we already had an order in shipment when we got locked down. So those actually came, which was great. And then we had enough of the other things that we were able to pivot quickly, get folks working from home, learning from home, teaching from home with all their tools. And so we were basically shoveling stuff out the doors as fast as we could, whether it was document cameras and iPads or Chromebooks or laptops or monitors or webcams or whatever we had, wherever it took. And hotspots and whatever else for families and folks who didn't have good internet at home. And then after that came the remote support. So everybody's at home with all their stuff, and now they need support. So that was a lot of adjustment on our part. We hadn't done a lot of experience doing remote support, so we geared up, we tooled up, and we were able to do pretty well with that. We even had a couple of opportunities or instances where we traveled to folks' homes to solve it right then and there and take care of it to make sure they had what they needed. And then worked with everybody we could to make sure that all families and staff had the Wi-Fi access they needed to keep doing what they needed to do. And everyone's workload increased dramatically for all these things. More stuff, more support, more logistics, more disruption. And so we adopted new tools, new practices. We tried to streamline our remote support for families, staff, and students. And again, everyone just pitched in and did what had to be done, and we got through it. The teachers were great. We couldn't be everywhere for everybody, but we could be some places for some people, and we were strategic and enlisted our allies, and they helped as well. So it was tough times, but I think we got what we needed to do done. And so we were iterating pretty quickly in those first couple of weeks and months of new tools coming out. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember Zoom and Meet were changing daily. And every day, a new feature for Zoom. Every day a new security thing that we can't do anymore, new with this, and Zoom bombers and all that fun stuff. So we were cranking through pretty quickly to make sure that everybody had what they needed. And so we, Clever and Seesaw Premium and Google Classroom, Zoom Meet, Jamboard, all those things all got ramped up pretty quickly to meet those needs. And then again, returning to classrooms with physical distancing, Wi-Fi in outdoor spaces, furniture, whatever we needed to do to make sure that we could continue on with our teaching and learning in those new spots. So how we've changed, I guess, since then. So we're a lot better, more comfortable with video conferencing. And we're seeing areas, although I still have to be reminded to unmute sometimes. But we are seeing areas where that's going to continue, where faculty and staff are continuing to use those to connect with each other, with parents, families, colleagues. So I think that's a nice bright spot. We have a lot more experience being productive while working remotely. Again, the digital workflows, the video conferencing. The tech department is supporting more people and more things with the same staff. So that's been we hope things are settling down now and we're in a spot of equilibrium, and we're going to be working through that. Not leasing, as I said earlier, gave us the flexibility and gives us flexibility to repurpose student iPads and Chromebooks when they're done with them. So if we want to move them to other folks who need access, we can do that. We have options now, so that's great. And with one-to-one iPads in K3, we're starting a process to stabilize and converge on consistent set of skills and expectations for those students there. So I kind of whipped through that pretty quickly. I hope that wasn't too fast. I hope I gave enough pause so you could stop and raise your hand if you had a question, but I'll take questions now since I didn't get any before.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for John?
I would just say that I think as challenging as those COVID, like you said, weeks, months, years, I don't even know, as challenging as they were, you know, you and your department definitely stepped up to support, and I don't think Westborough had been as successful as we were if it wasn't all the things that you had in place to help us be successful. But I also think some of that slide you just showed about the ways we've changed, a lot of positive has come out of that, like the fact that now everyone has one-to-one. I think maybe we would have gotten there by now. We got there faster. That was hard, but we're there, you know? So I feel like it was a lot of hard work, but it brought us to a good place. So thank you to you and your team, because I know it was a lot, and you were definitely a key to why Westborough was successful in that transition from school to home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, really, that was the number one thing people would talk about, is that we had a remote school system going on at the same time as a hybrid, and yet everyone needed technology, far and wide. And could we get technology to be outside at outdoor classrooms? Could Wi-Fi reach the tent, and could it reach the outdoor classroom? So all these things, and was everything functioning at the same time? Could everyone be online at the same time? I mean, and then of course, when you look at your presentation, the number of things that you thought of at some point, but they weren't an aggregate of so many things that you achieved and completed, and your staff stepped up. So the one thing that is glaring, that as a school committee member, that I have to ask, which is about budget. Because when we think about one-to-one technology being added to K through 3, the question becomes, there was COVID funding at the time for a piece of that, and the question becomes, how does that become part of the budget? Are you still receiving grants for that piece, or did it assemble itself into the budget that you had? Which is possible too, you know.
Yes, so budgetarily going from where we were to where we are wasn't a huge step. So we were at least like 1 to 2 in the budget before it hit. So we were already halfway there. And so getting the other half of the way there wasn't necessarily a huge lift. So we weren't going from 0 to 100 across the whole district. We were already most of the way there. So we were able to incorporate that difference into our budget. Certainly this FY22, purchasing for those kindergarten iPads was budgeted in this FY22 budget and continues going forward. So,
And by ending our leasing agreement, we gain the flexibility to kind of read the life expectancy of the iPad cycle, and I think and John and his team, I think, manage that adeptly, and that helps us as well. I think we got more out of the ones that we've used and gotten a little bit further, but I do think John does an incredibly good job working with the financial department to stage his strategic purchasing so that, one, the impact of the cost is spread out, and we always have a trajectory ahead of what we need. So it really very effectively, when you consider we've also been able to stage in the server rollovers that he articulated, which can be a bigger hit, but actually we've managed within budget. So again, those are the things that when people look at the infrastructure of a large organization, there's always the rollover of those financial pieces of upkeep that are essential lifeblood of the district. I mean, it is the circulatory system of the district. And, Dave pumps the money. And John feeds the beast, and the district runs, and I think really it is an amazing, it's also creative and responsive. Like, we've innovated different people taking on different roles. Like, I really like that about his team. It's very innovative. Like shifting Megan Gertenzang, who's just, a really amazing math teacher, into a role where she's moving in and out of those classrooms, helping innovate the technology that's layered in. I mean, those are just really exciting pieces of the team. And I think the other piece that they're modest about is 17 people touching that many. What's our total number of devices? Probably, I can't even imagine.
Enrollment. What's our enrollment?
Well, 4,000, so you've got to figure that plus staff. We probably have 6,000 devices in district that are running around, being serviced by 17 people.
That's not the half of it, because you have document cameras, projectors, TV
Right,
screens.
right.
It's
And you
people-
have the 10 to
multiple-
12 kids who have their own device, but we help service and make sure that they can get on the network and keep them, So it's interesting, because then there's the infrastructure of the rotation of devices when people need a loaner. And then there's people that go out of, leave, because we also have had 250 people leave the district since the start of the school year. And so you have to reclaim devices, and you have to clean them, and you have to take all the stuff off them that shouldn't be there, that one kid needed, and cycle them back out. I mean, to think that 17 people do that in district is pretty amazing. And again, I do think at some point we will probably increase that staff if necessary. But they'll let us know when they've outgrown, the capacity.
I would just quickly add, when I started, Amber had mentioned John's kind of expertise in budgeting. And needless to say, he's to the penny. Great with the vendors. There's a technology kind of angle he takes on it, and he matches eye for eye with everybody related to conversations and content and longevity and cost. And he would be great to go with someone if they're buying a new car. He's that pushes back, and he's savvy with Munis. And I think the business office takes a little bit of a breather knowing that, John's really in well control of his budget. And it's not easy to control the volume and, $750,000, or so he does a great job.
Yeah.
Well, we are very grateful, and I'm glad you said that, Dave, and Amber, because I think most of us know that, but for you to come here and talk about your team and see the unbelievable list that's in your presentation of what is done, and yet we also know so much more that's not in the presentation. So we appreciate what you've been able to do for our system, and it's incredible. Thank you. I'm glad there's a face to our technology, which, people don't get to see you very often, and we haven't seen you for a few years, and we just haven't been able to thank you for what you were able to accomplish during some incredibly trying years, never mind what you do on a daily basis when it's not that. So you've been a true value to Westborough Public Schools, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And also a shout out to the Ranger Tech Squad.
Yeah, they are amazing.
They're
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not just 17 of us. There's 17
right.
full
I'm also
employees.
impressed by the way you innovatively use the signal of a network to put all those
I know. I was like,
Wi-Fi
oh, I like
words in
your-
there.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
creative. Took me a little while to get that.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, what I do is look at it. Yeah. It's cute.
Emblem. Yeah,
All right. Thanks, John.
There's
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, thanks. So,
Good job.
where
All
are
right,
we? So
back
we're
to
back to the
me.
agenda. We're
Yes.
now moving on to the annual stipend document review. Amber?
All right, so again, I'm going to show you two documents, and you're receiving them tonight, and you can review them and follow up with questions with me, and you do your vote formally at the next meeting, so that then we can get these posted, because they have a rotation where people start to sign up, and we start to make sure that we can have fall coaches ready to go and all of that. So this is the annual memo where I coordinate the stipend subcommittee, working with Kristen and some administrators and teachers to basically come together and steer the amazing arm of this work where there is so much going on across our district to enhance and support the interests of students beyond just their robust classroom learning. So this is the group that encapsulates all of our sports, all of our fine arts, and all of our clubs across district. And this team manages that and sets out to make sure that we can acknowledge that work through the stipend we pay. Again, I want to acknowledge that these don't represent the amount of time and volume and the commitment that people after a long workday bring to staying and working more, because they really enjoy providing a structure for our students. So structurally, I want to acknowledge the main action that you have is really boiled down to two pieces. The job of the committee is to bring to you each spring any new additions to the club list that are being placed into the stipend grid based upon number of meetings, number of students, length of meetings, burden of responsibilities, weekend work, off-site travel, all of the composite kind of metrics that they use to then create a grid where they then have different stipend amounts. The committee does a great job to take in the data, look at it, ask questions, and then put people into the grid. We then bring this to you annually and say, here are clubs that are asking to be placed into the stipend framework. This year you have, I believe, 10 clubs that would be new. You have one that is returning from retirement. We actually last year retired the newspaper because we had built it into part of the course of study, but there's still the arm of the Lobby O and the video piece and a more extensive piece of work. So we've pulled that out of retirement and kind of instated that stipend again to acknowledge that beyond what's done during the coursework, there's a lot of additional stuff that needs to be maintained by the advisor that supports that group. So we're unretiring the Lobby O, and we are adjusting National Honor Society up based upon changes in responsibility, extension of the number of students, and more that they want to be able to do in the scope of their work. And then the others are with the change in doing the $500 base stipend whenever you run a club annually for years 1 and 2 before you ask to be placed into the stipend framework. We did have a small number of clubs that had a very small stipend, so we've set all of them at the base of 500. So those clubs would be maintained at that rate, and that would be parallel to clubs that are then running annually. So the lowest base amount would be the 500. And we looked at each of those clubs and making sure that we felt that that was reasonable. And I think the team felt that that was logical. I think we also know and want to acknowledge that we haven't reset those for quite a while in terms of that differential. And these clubs are all continuing to be pretty active as well. So you see the total increase requested is $16,784 that goes into the salary allotment. We do not need additional funding for that, and for the rationale that there's some clubs year to year that don't run that will pool into being able to offset clubs we add. And then we never know what that's going to be. It's kind of an interesting chemistry, so we wait and see. And if every club that was listed ran, then we would take the differential and pay it from student activity accounts. So we always have like the buffer to basically support any club that's slotted into the framework of the, into the list. And we're now carrying the window of those clubs on average that would start or end, right? So the $500 new clubs, some of them might run year 2, some might not. So we're gonna get a feel for like how that swings in terms of interest. I want to say it was very well received, that people acknowledge that a club that exists and does really well for a year is a legitimate and important club, and the advisors are really excited to think that they would be, paid within that year. I think it encourages people to step up too, to make sure that we have that available. And I believe this year, the committee voted to apply a 2% increase to all of the positions, thus holding some of the additional funding in the increase that was given, because it was increased at the allotment of so typically the stipend list will have the application of whatever the contract rollover is. So if it went up by 2%, all of those would go, we would get 2% of the total. So the 3.5% of the total, we're basically holding that 1.5 to offset these clubs that'll come in and to absorb the differential of however many 500 clubs might run, and then into the student activity funds if necessary, if every club ran. So we kind of talked through the chemistry of how to do that financing. It works really smoothly each year. We collaborate with Dave's team and track everything, and we're really always pleased to see that there's just a robust set of things going on. I guess what I would do is open it up for any discussion you might have. And then I also attached for you the complete list of stipend clubs that will be available to run and what those stipends are. And that's in a PDF that I also provided to you. And it assumes in the total of that list that you approve those that are noted to you in this memo. And then you would have an opportunity to final vote those at the next meeting. And that's kind of, Kristen, do you have highlights you want to add, having folded into the team? It's kind of a fast-moving, fun group.
Yeah, it is, and definitely, it was clear to me that there's a system in place, like that the system is, everyone knew, like, all right, you look at this column, look at, it took me a while to orient into like these massive spreadsheets, year 1, year 2, this club's, just rolling over. But the thoughtfulness that goes into new clubs and really thinking about sustainability for that club, some pretty, I think, good guidelines and boundaries about, it's not just, a teacher and some kids hanging out. There's like a clear purpose. There has to be enrollment in the club and attendance, and you have to prove that this is something that students want and it'll sustain. And then if it does, it can roll into the list and be something that's offered year over year. And then if interest wanes, we can make room for something else. So it's a fluid list. I like that it is looked at all the time, and there's some good people organizing it and really staying on top of making sure that our clubs are very high quality. It's not just like a hangout after school. There's a lot of learning, service happening, and kudos to all of the Gibbons and high school and even Mill Pond staff who step up to stay after school or come to school early or travel with kids on weekends to competitions. It's what makes Westborough schools so interesting and exciting and dynamic. So it was really eye-opening for me to be folded into the meeting and to see the...
It's a fun meeting,
I was
actually.
like, what page are we on now? And, you guys kept me up on it, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I appreciate seeing behind the scenes there.
So Stephen, this is your first time seeing the list of, and it is an extraordinary, it just says a lot about Westborough Public Schools.
Yeah, I really appreciate the framework that's being applied here, and that there's a chance to really evaluate the practice and see what is drawing attention and what isn't, and that it allows that kind of flexibility. So yeah, I really echo what Kristen has said. I think it's a wonderful list.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure Andrew's looking at saying, I've never seen that club, because they're fluid. Some of them come in and go each year. And so, like, for example, there might be, this whole list will get posted. Students queue up what they're interested in. Advisors start pushing notices. So there might be like 5 clubs in here that they think they're going to run, and then they might not. And so those would pay the offset in this year, but we leave them in there and we wait and see. And then over a couple of years, we sometimes retire a club. So I would say in my time here in the memos, we've probably retired about, I don't know, probably a dozen. And then some of them, will come and go and come back in and out. So it's kind of exciting.
So for instance, Andrew, I see that there's 2 JV teams for baseball, and I know there's only 1 this year, but other years there might be 2. So it's
Right.
that second JV team obviously won't run, and that folds in, so, and that's what happens. Every year, we, review the memo of all the stipends, and it's, the way I look at it is this is a tremendous investment in our students, to have them guided and look for new passions and really get exposed to new opportunities that they never would, dream of, and it really is that. It's so.
And I think also like connecting with adults in the building. So if kids want to join clubs at Gibbons or the high school, they might end up being connected to a teacher that they never would have, like in a subject, maybe never have that teacher, but they've made a new connection with another adult on a different topic or something, or in a sport that, and we know for mental health, having a trusted adult. And so the more connections that students can make with adults across the building, the better off, our students will be. So I just think it's great. We have so much involvement and staff that want to step up and run it. And I think, Amber, like you said, moving all of those stipends that were like $200, $300 range up to the $500 allows us to say that we know that these teachers are making a commitment, and it's a professional commitment. Like I said, it's not just like I like to throw Frisbees around, so come play Frisbee. No, the Ultimate Frisbee has like tournaments and games and practices, and so it's a professional obligation. And so
Yeah,
we can
the
pay them that way.
esports, the addition of esports, like
is
that
incredible.
group has been like there every
crazy.
night.
So popular,
Yeah.
right?
I was surprised how fast that took off.
Yeah, and how much they put in like a lot of time, and they have tournaments and they have data and they get together, and they also do exercise and stretching and walking warm up. Like
to
there's
do
a whole
warm-ups.
infrastructure
Do, like, push-ups
of
and
routine
sit-ups.
for it. Yeah, it's definitely
awesome.
like a program. So then they do a branch of kind of fitness that is team oriented, and then they move into their esports and they work out of the library. And so at this point, they are ready to take off. And this year, they had a really good year. So yeah, it's exciting.
So they exercise?
Yeah.
So yeah, so they stretch. They do some like curls. They do some stair walks. They stretch. Because it's just about mind and body, and then so there's a whole structure for it, and then the tournaments, and yeah, it's kind of cool. So I'm gonna go check it out. I just got the report from Johanna, who's like, you got to see this. So that's really exciting.
And
Yeah.
the stipends are based on different hourly, some meet monthly, some meet weekly, some
Right.
do other work beyond. Yeah, it's.
Like travel, yeah.
Yeah. So
really
anyway,
great.
it's exciting. Yeah.
So what is our motion? Our motion is,
Well, I think we just accept
Well,
it.
you accept it now, and then you vote it at the next meeting. I've typically always let you have a meeting in between where you can vote it tonight if you want, that's fine. Otherwise, you just do the voting motion, and it gives you a window if there's any questions you have. Some years you've just voted it because you've seen it, you feel confident with it, and you voted it, that's fine. And if you want to wait till the next meeting and you want to review it further, it's pretty explicit, so.
I'd like to wait till everyone's
I'd like to
here.
wait since
Yeah,
we're
that's
missing a
fine.
couple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll
we-
wait and come back and.
Yeah, definitely, and then I can touch base with Regu and Steve and see if they have any questions. So,
Okay.
And
thank
I
you.
just want to say to anyone watching that your child, your student, has to sign up in Family ID for a club in order to have it count as attendance. So if, I know my daughter will be like, you have to sign me up for this, you have to sign me up for that, but that's really important to follow through so that it's actually documented that you have made a commitment to come to this club.
Yep, definitely. All right, so.
So moving along, we're coming to the draft of the school committee schedule of meeting dates for 2022-23 that was sent to all of you. This is our first review, and next time we would vote on that. So are there any questions about that at this time? Notice that October 5th meeting has become October 6th on a Thursday. That's the one, standout exception.
And
And then we moved the November meeting is a little different structurally, and Lisa came up with, I think, a good solution in how she responded to laying out November, because we have the conference in that first week, and then you're getting too close to Thanksgiving, And then we were going to back it up instead of, like, we were going to do the first, but then that backed into, I think it is the Good Scout Award dinner night, which a lot of people go to. So we opted to, and I'm on the board for that, so we just decided that I have to go that night, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that, I think it's in good shape.
Yeah, I did notice the, 3 in November, 1 in December. But to me, I know that that's a really busy time of year. I know November, that month is busy, but also for us, like, we do such early budgeting that it makes sense to meet like more often just to get on top of that. I feel like that's useful.
Yeah, and so we'll look at how that fits into the rotation. It would mean that you would end up voting the budget on the 14th, as opposed to typically when you do it, which would be, I think, like a week later.
Yeah.
But, so
I mean, if we have to add
if
a
we
meeting,
had to, we could add a
but-
meeting. If we had to add a meeting, we'll map out the budget cycle and just, we'll cross-reference it. It should work. I was looking at it again today. I think it's the same number of meetings and, we're doing so much early discussion now with the way we're doing the summits, that I think we should be fine. It's going to be a piece of cake because Dave's going to be working off his own numbers and his own budget.
Own documents.
We're going to be like, we got this. So we both keep saying next year when we are talking it through. So I'm very excited. I'm never excited to do the budget, but I'm actually really excited to do the budget next year with Dave, where the two of us are working off of, in collaboration, the energy of just what he did this year with it and the work, and just kind of knowing the movement of the finances across one whole cycle of the year. I think it'll give us some nice ways to kind of figure it out.
And I really appreciate knowing the retreat date ahead of time, Lisa
Yeah.
and Amber, thank you. I know that sometimes we're like, oh no, we want to do a retreat and we're trying to find,
Right.
so I've already got it in my calendar.
In the calendar.
So,
Yep. And the tentative fall town meeting date is on there, just to keep in mind. And then even the tentative spring town meeting is on there. So it gives you a sense of where we are. I mean, I like having a full calendar that's set in stone as much as possible.
we'll double check holidays and everything. I know you did, but we can double check.
But yeah, it would be good for everyone to double check, and then we'll come back to it next time for a potential vote.
She linked the
And
foundation reserve. Did she link it?
Okay, so we're moving right along. We are now at the foundation reserve appropriation.
Sure. I'm going to read you. Well, this is an email we received from the great minds at DESE, and some of their mathematical wizardry related to some variances related to enrollment. I just want to read it so it's on record as to how the methodology behind it. Districts were eligible to receive funding if they experienced enrollment increases from FY22 to FY23, with priority funding provided to districts with enrollment declines from FY21 to FY22, followed by significant enrollment increases from FY22 to FY23. Defined as regaining at least 10% of the enrollment lost in at least 5 students. So their math is always tricky. If you followed the FY cycles of it, what they wanted to do was essentially say if your enrollment was ended up being somewhat cyclical, they did a determination and found some additional resources to infuse certain communities. Westborough was one of those 128 communities that got it. The amount that that DESE and the state allocated in that kind of variance model was around almost slightly over 14 million. And as you can imagine, we opened the portal and we're significantly pleased to see or at least felt that we were going to be pleased with the number. And the number is $1,500 for Westborough.
So it was like, I know, I was like, it's like the big lead-in to like $1,500. I was like, is there a zero missing
Yeah,
there?
so we
Like, I know.
it was a very much a letdown, so to speak. We appreciate any money, but at the same time, we expected a little more out of the 14 million. The guidance that DESE provides is the actual verbatim is spent by the school committee without further action on the part of the local appropriating authority. So essentially, we are asking the school committee to endorse Amber's ability to spend the $1,500 as she would do so.
I make a motion to have Amber be able to utilize those $1,500 funds,
Our windfall, yeah.
or windfall, from the Foundation Reserve appropriation.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Send it all in one place.
We are always happy to get funding, and I think when you look at it, the trajectory of some of the other communities that have had much more trauma around really staggering enrollment shifts received more funding. So we love that they did, and that was appropriate. And we would be able to use this against any deficits, so it's good. There you go.
Yeah, we were just talking about the stipends. This would cover
That's
a
right.
few
It's
stipends.
money is money. We'll take it.
So I'll take it.
That's right.
Thank you.
Are all in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry, all in favor? That's a 3-0.
I'm thinking of Jen having to like,
3 being present. Yes.
thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
thank you. And yeah, that, sometimes
go.
these things come up and you just never know if DESE's gonna, we made the list even, so.
I know. Do you want me to keep going?
Oh, sure, we're
All
moving
right.
on to the next.
So one of the things we also do is the annual update of we do 4 reports a year. So one of the things that they said it still meets the state requirement is we can stack them up. So I'm going to do the 3rd and the 4th quarter reports to you, each a separate document for the record. And again, I just want to note that I think Assabet Valley Collaborative is an important, meaningful organization. I think collaboratives themselves serve a really vital purpose. I think collaboratives are struggling coming off of COVID, and I think that Assabet Valley Collaborative is going to have some financial challenges over the next 2 years. They had made a lot of investment in beginning to do some new space renovations, and we're just taking off with more programming and PD, and I think they've really taken a huge hit. So I think that they have buffer in there, and I think we will be fine. But I just, want to hold up 2 pieces of the report. The first being the annual tuitions. Again, this has been accepted by the board and forwarded to you as a point of record. It doesn't require you to vote. It's a note of information. It's mostly relevant for Dave to pick up on any changes to transportation, where we do have an overlay there, and there will be changes to that. We don't have a lot of students embedded in program currently, but we do have some. And so those would be tuition increases that, again, helps people to budget. And for districts that have quite a few number of students with them, it lets them anticipate changes. So I would just note to you that I think the costs were reasonable. They benchmark well against other areas, and again, always try to keep member districts at some advantage in terms of cost in comparison to the going rate, should you do that out of district or should you go to other types of collaboratives. So I'd offer that as the first note around a financial update, which I think is, again, important, and the change to the van information is probably our most essential. Any questions on this report? All right.
No.
The next I would turn towards is a change where I believe you should take a vote. It doesn't say vote, but I think I'd like to cover us to make sure I don't need to bring it back. Okay. Kathy was clear that the board had voted, and that you originally voted as a board to accept this policy before, and this is just to raise the cap, and she wasn't sure that we needed to do a formal vote, and she actually didn't think we had to. You need to receive it informationally. I'd rather than some of the superintendents were going to take action to vote on it, so I think we should do so. So they established basically a revolving account where if they had funds available at the close of the year, they can only keep up to 7% of kind of reserves, and anything over that, they would have to return to the user districts. So they're always tracking their finances, but it does allow them with certain guidelines to have revolving accounts where they can then, capital being a very clear example, where should they have reserve funds, they can make a transfer into that with an agreed amount of cap from us. But given that they, over the last several years, and I think the rationale is sound and I accept it, again, I'm the chair this year, so I've seen all of this, is that they've added facilities and they have a lot of capital work to do, and therefore the cap, if they were to ever have an opportunity to have a fund, I don't think they will in the next 2 years, but would they have that, they would want the opportunity to hold a larger cap to offset the range of capital projects that they have in the future. So the action would be to raise the cap beyond the $722,500 to $1,500,000 so that they could hold in reserves that, if possible, should they have an opportunity to roll funds forward. All within the agreed parameters of the collaborative's guidelines. And I would say you would take a motion to allow the capital reserve fund to be increased to the $1,500,000. So I would recommend you do so. I'm in support of it, and I think the other member districts were. It's certainly advantageous to us to do so should they ever have an opportunity, because otherwise they end up passing those costs forward to us in an unanticipated way. Any opportunities they have to build a base to hold that allows them to respond to capital emergencies without additional costs being brought to the collaborative, and any additional reserve funds help them to maintain stability. So that would be the rationale.
So I'm reading that we need am I correct that this needs a 2/3 vote?
Well, if you all vote in favor, it'd be unanimous. So you don't need, it's 2/3 of your quorum based.
Quorum. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the clarification. So I'll
It's
make
like
a
a
motion
math problem.
to approve the revisions to the capital reserve plan to increase the cap from $722,500 to $1,500,000, and to include capital projects at all of Assabet Valley Collaborative's owned or leased properties. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I have a question, just so that I think I understand correctly. This is just to allow a fund to receive more money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any other discussion? All in favor? That's a vote of 3-0 with 3 being present. And then we're moving on to the next agenda item of Armstrong update. Amber, do you want to walk us through that?
I will. Dave and I will do it together. We've been partnering on this little adventure of work. I think you've all been paying very close attention. I just want to give everyone an acknowledgement that doing an emergency procurement, I think we've had at least 20 meetings on this, and time well spent to both get knowledgeable and move quickly. And I think it's an example of working collaborative across a lot of boards. I just want to give a commendation and a thanks to the Select Board and FinCom for thoughtful conversation and acknowledgement of the need to move forward, and for the creative funding solutions that allowed us to not require a town meeting. I just really want to acknowledge that I felt like I was at a very highly functional community when we brought forward this problem. And I'm grateful that Westborough works the way it works. I just want to say that out loud. And Christy has been just a true partner, and we all had a lot to figure out quickly, Shab and everybody else. And then Dave has really worked really quickly with the buildings and grounds team to just keep things happening. So I guess when we do everything right, the only thing that went wrong was the roof, but nobody could have known that it would have just lost its last stretch of potential so quickly. So as of now, I would say the benchmarks would be, we have a bid, it's been opened and awarded. It went to
Greenwood Industries.
Yeah.
Wood Industries, yes.
And it was for, give the amount again.
$1,263,000.
And the other 2 bids were,
Gibson Roofing and Silktown Roofing. And they were, Gibson was 1.2, slightly higher, 1.298, and Silktown was 1.375.
so we awarded the most cost-effective. It's also a strong company. It's local. They have product they feel they can access. They acknowledge that they have a timeline. Shab and Dave worked really quickly with Bob and Kelly to make sure that we got the purchase orders and the lock-in on the agreement and awarded the bid quickly so that we could get steps going.
I would add that there's a lot of what came from this was not only the collaborative aspect, but there's a little bit of expertise and pause and inference, and I think that actually works out well to our advantage. There's certain people, Bob, Shab, that have extreme proficiencies in 30B, and I think for as others and us get ramped up on what 30B is and all the complexities in the DCAM emergency process, there's opportunity for us to ask questions from a procedural standpoint, from an appropriation standpoint, from a providing a PO, all this stuff, just making sure that we, cross the T's and dot the I's. So I think just the balance of between experts and, the overall goal of what's going to happen. But again, just the general knowledge, I think it couldn't have been a kind of a stronger formulation of everybody just asking the right questions, kind of guarding the process, but at the same time having that proficiencies that exist between us and the town to say we're doing what we're supposed to do, and everything seems to be going far. I think for right now the next steps would be we're getting some additional reinforcement from Greenwood Industries that procurement from their aspect is appropriate and can happen based on supply chain issues and things like that. Bob is working very closely with them to make sure that there's no hurdles. As far as we know right now, again, as of today, things look well. And we foresee this kind of just rolling out, without any hiccups going forward. Obviously, we'll keep you abreast if anything happens. But as of right now, between, again, the town's effort, Bob's effort, our roofing expert, Adam, who deserves a big shout out for kind of holding our hands and guiding us through this process, also being kind of an ally in this whole thing, just kind of coming in and merging himself right into the camaraderie of us and the town. I feel very confident, aside from any potential supply chain issues that, we're off and running. So it's been a great experience from a learning perspective, but also from kind of a product management standpoint as well.
I couldn't have said it better. And I think the other part of that is that we also made smart decision-making to then rotate the Hastings project out of the queue for ARPA funds. And while we have a voted warrant article available, we're clear that we were putting a hold on any action to draw any requests for funds until we had a kind of a well-framed project planning meeting with all the right players at the table. I think that's occurring May 23rd, and we'll be able to come together and start to just map out what's the best road forward with that project, with the funds that we have available, with what needs to happen, and so then put together kind of a proposal that both encapsulates the history of what's happened and then what we think would need to bring all the pieces to finalization. And then we can take that back to the larger planning committee side of the town, FinCom at that finance meeting, and Christie in the town, and have good conversation. We'll bring it here first, give you guys the update, then rotate it over there for discussion, and just make sure that people feel like in a fully transparent way, we've all acknowledged that project has a lot of complexity. And I think one of the things we want to do is anchor a planning team that can meet more regularly on that project so that we can keep all the players on the same page and, again, continue good work in that building as well. So, lots of good things going on, and I'll keep you updated as we start to move forward. We have the Armstrong Playground project doing assessments of the site right now, and that's moving forward. So they'd be overlapping there, but able to stage thoughtfully together. Look, we need to finish. And and then the other project is we would move forward on the chillers for the high school, which I think we should put on our update list the next time. Yep. So we'll put that on the update for the next school committee meeting to keep you kind of abreast of how that one's moving forward as well. Gonna air condition those gyms after you leave. Your brother will get a less sweaty gym. All right, and that's my report on Armstrong.
Any questions?
I did have a question. Does it look like the bulk of the work can be done this summer?
Yeah, according to the coordination effort with Greenwood Industries, yes. But again, I hate to put that caveat in there about the supply chain stuff, but as of right now, yes, it looks like it.
Do you think we should have them vote to accept?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
We went back and forth on whether or not we needed to actually hold a vote to accept the bid.
I don't think so. I
I
think,
don't think you do it in an emergency procurement, but, I
because we
think
did
we're
it
fine.
through the emergency procurement process, and then it was open publicly per se. And they could have attended, and it was done, in an open space.
Okay. I
think we're good.
And thank you, Amber and Dave. It is interesting when there's an emergency that it takes you away from your regular schedule activities, and we
we didn't-
appreciate what you've done. It's
Yeah.
between you and Dave and Bob, and
Yeah.
we are grateful to the three of you and your teams, and also to Mike Beretti and Ian Johnson, they're chairs of the FinCom and Select Board, both who threw into action into their agendas, including a meeting on Monday night for the FinCom, who voted 8-0-0 on this project, and Select Board last night voted 5-0 in support of this. So thank you to all of them.
And I did also send a notice to the Armstrong faculty and gave them an update as well, so they were able to know what the progress is, and they're pleased as well. So lots of good things. So I think we've done the first steps, so we're good.
Okay, well, the next meeting of the school committee is scheduled for Wednesday, May 25th at 6 p.m., 2022. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? I see 3-0 in favor of adjournment, 3 being present. We are adjourned.